I've described this as like my decade business. And we went into it knowing that. We went into it knowing that if we failed, the only reason we failed is because we didn't do a good enough job.
Welcome back to This Week in No Code. I'm your host, JJ Englert, here with my co-host, David Pal. We have another fantastic show for you this week in No Code. We have a little bit of news to catch you up with, and then we're going to hop into an exclusive interview with Chris, the founder of Loops.so, the email platform powering transactional email and so much more. So let's get started with the news of the week with David.
Hey, everybody. Happy Wednesday. We're recording today. Happy Hump Day.
Hump Day.
Remember those commercials, the State Farm commercials?
That camel,
the camel running through the office.
Yeah.
Anyway, this week we didn't do news last week, so catching up a little bit. But first, we're going to start off with a new launch of a new product from our friends over at No Code Devs. They launched SaaS Refs, which is not a scorekeeper. It's not a zebra that runs on the field in a soccer game. It is a database of SaaS tools that's curated by No Code Devs. They add a whole layer of analytics, growth, visitors, groupings by product category. They even allow you to add your community section, the newest arrivals category, which is a community curated section that lets you post about products that you may have heard of, maybe even you're building, that needs to be found. I think this is a really cool way to help you find new SaaS products. Obviously, there's lots that's being shilled on Twitter, right? Like you can see lots of stuff. But this is a less aggressive way to go find out more about what's happening in the indie hacker world and even some large companies and where they're at. When I look through it, you can see some things like Pika is on there. That's a pretty big company. They're growing pretty well. But then there are lots of like indie hackers. And so if you want to go support indie hackers, see what people are building, maybe even get some inspiration for a gap in the market for your next product, this is a pretty cool place to go check it out. So saasrefs.com, SAASREFS.com. This is a nice little database. Check it out.
Yeah, I think it's great to see the data like this laid out. Shout out to the guys at No Code Devs for putting this together. They have a lot of great ideas and they'll launch it pretty quickly. It's a small team, but it's nice to see them out and running like this. Looking through it myself, I see that Softer's up here for 643,000 visits. I'll take that. And there's some other big players out here as well. Notion is what? It's like 1.4 or 5 million a month, it looks like, potentially.
Yeah, Bubble is at 3.1 million.
All
but
right.
Growing at negative 0.17. I don't know. I guess that's percent.
Our Notion is 130 million. I was like, okay. All right. Yeah, it's cool to see these numbers like this. Yeah. Shout out to the guys for putting this together. Another great resource for this industry and community. Let's head on over to Dev Day. This was put on.
Before we do that, let's see what Loops is on here. Is Loops on here? Yeah, Loops is on here. They're at 571,000 visits, growing at 73%. That's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, I don't think this is monthly visits. I think this might be like to date visits or something like that. I'm not sure.
You think so?
You know what? I'd have to double check.
I don't know. Software at only 640,000. That seems like they're kind of.
Honestly, I didn't know that we were up to that much per month. I thought it was just around 300,000
to
400,000. So, but I'll take 600,000 as well. But otherwise, still a great resource for this. Why don't we head on over to last week? Sarah and Kelly Claus put on Dev Day. It was these two community members, Bubble leaders, put on a day where we had 34 different sessions, 350 attendees, and over 2,000 RSVPs. Totally community led. Everyone volunteered. Another example of this tremendous community coming together, supporting each other, helping each other, and just getting along, networking, meeting. Hats off to Kelly and Sarah for organizing this. Really appreciate all you did to put this together. We have such a special community, and this is just another way of like showing how special this community is. And now that I've gone beyond bubble outside a little bit, I would just say the no code community in general is very special. Because
Yeah.
I think it might just be like we all come from different backgrounds, right? Like you talk to people that are musicians, PhDs, all this kind of stuff, all coming together, filmmakers to like, I have a problem. I don't want to pay an engineer to do it. I'm going to teach myself. We eventually come all together in this hodgepodge of like a melting pot and share learned experiences and everything. And it's just wonderful.
Yeah, this was a really impressive event. I mean, they had sessions all over the world. It was basically all day long. They had, everyone from people in Los Angeles all the way to people in Australia. They had sessions in a bunch of different languages. Lots of these are recorded, and so now they're always available. And it was great to see what people wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
Um, this is an awesome community, like you said. I think this just goes to show that there are so many people doing like from the bottom of their heart, just like helping support the community. I think a lot of people that join the no code community are not developers by training, and they have to learn by experimentation. And so they learn from the community. And so they eventually feel indebted to the community to want to give back and then help the next group of people in the community. And so I think it's wonderful that this happens. Like this happens in the Salesforce world as well. They have a really vibrant community of trailhead leaders or MVPs, whatever they call them.
Hmm.
But again, it's the same kind of thing. It's someone who's not a developer but kind of gets pushed into it or tries to train and learn how to
Yeah.
become something, a Salesforce architect or something. And so I think it's a really cool collaborative environment.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, we just form these relationships and we make
Mhm.
friends, right? And we help each other and we try to give back when possible, and it's special. And
Yeah.
it's nice that even though we, are located in one part of the world, we have friends all over the world because of such. And yeah, that's awesome, right?
Yeah. How do you feel about how communities should be organized? Right. In this, I think I have a guess at what your opinions are, but like, is community driven education what should be happening? Do you think the platform should be more involved? Like Webflow has Webflow conferences, Figma has, their conference. Like, where does this live? Like, what do you think
Yeah.
about that?
My personal opinion on this, and it's still evolving as I'm in this role currently, but the company needs to set the pace and be out there first. But then at the same time, they need to encourage the community and support the community as much as possible. The company can only do so much, right?
Yeah.
And the company teaches one way that might not be the best for every way. So give the basics, give the requirements, set them up for success, and then give tons of different resources with different educators teaching different ways and help those educators find different topics that people are searching in your platform and allow the educators to know about that, guide them in that direction, let them know what our users are looking to learn so
Mhm.
they can build that content, right? And so I think generally sometimes the platforms don't kind of communicate. They're just like, go do your thing kind of thing. But we could do a better job with communicating between the platforms and the educators to say, this is what our users are looking for. Are you interested in making this type of content? If so, here are some
Yeah.
tips. And then also let us help you distribute this. Like we want this to help people. You're making this to help people. Let us help you do it.
Yeah, it's not so far off from like UGC, user generated content marketing, right? Like the marketer provides a brief to the influencer or to the average person, the consumer, the customer, the average person, the user, to then let them go make the content that fits the information and style, and then they like help promote it, and they put the money behind social and all of these things. It seems like a good model. In this world, like like the world right now is still driven by consultants, right? Like agencies and people who are building for others, and so there is a self-serving nature of it. And I don't think Dev Day was at all, just to be clear. Like that was just a really nice thing that they did. But a lot of stuff can be like, you know people put out work like there's an agency I know of that they have like a camp that they put people through, but it's really a funnel into their stuff. And so I think there's like a distinction between that, but um, I don't know. I think the community led stuff feels more genuine and like really just for fun and not like, oh, I have to be all buttoned up. Like when we did the meetups in Los Angeles for Bubble, like they were not too polished. They were just fun and it was relaxed and like there were no expectations that they were going to get stuff and no one felt bad if they missed a giveaway and it was just like a good time. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I think there's a lot of ways to take it. Personally, I think from the company platform perspective, you want to have a well done branded approach to make sure that you're helping your users from day one all the way to the experts and the agencies. But then at the same time, you need to get your community involved, and you want to for many different reasons. And so it's only advantageous to work together on this.
Yeah.
So, all right, what do we got
All
next,
right,
David?
on to the next one. We're getting back into the AI world, AI and robotics. Figure AI raises a $675 million round. I don't know what round this is, maybe Series B by now. They are on a tear. Brett Adcock, the CEO there, who's been on My First Million, kind of following him around a little bit, he's had a number of successful big hardware exits and IPOs. Last building, I think, a vertical takeoff and landing plane. That was EV. And now getting into robotics. Um, Lots of interesting stuff happening in the robotics world, right? Elon putting out their own robotic tool. And now, this was supported by OpenAI. And now NVIDIA came out the other day at their conference talking about how they're building models for robotics with chips, specialized chips and sensors, and kind of their whole robotics lab. So it'll be interesting to see how a startup like Figure competes with an NVIDIA, or if they just become part of a big AI company that wants to get into robotics. Um, it's interesting. One of the takes I read on Twitter recently was, Boston Dynamics, who's known for the robotic dog, and kind of watching them get through, the dancing dog moment on YouTube and all. They took 20 years and they still don't really have a robot that does as much as Figure does, at startup speed, right? And like getting the right people in the room and just letting them build. It's pretty cool. And so if you haven't seen the videos, Figure AI, um, just go check them out. They've got some really cool demos going on.
It's really neat. How far away do you think we are from like having robots in the house? And let me before you get there, I
Yeah.
think this kind of seems a little bit like Apple Vision Pro, where it's like, hey, we have a concept out. It's really cool. It's so close, but it's not like fully practical or economical yet. Like so when do we get to the Apple Vision Pro of robots?
I think there are two paths to this. I think there will be single purpose robots well before there's one robot butler that does everything.
Okay.
Right, a long time ago, and it has now happened. I remember sitting going like, I want to build a startup that has a self-driving truck with self-driving lawn care that unrolls into the driveway, cuts the lawn, hops into the car and drives to the next driveway, right? Or to the next lawn.
We're
And like
close.
it's those things are existing, right? Like there are robotic lawn care companies. There are self-driving cars, and now kind of merging those two things makes more sense. Now there's still going to be the like edges of trimming and weed whacking and like the some of the stuff that won't really work well with the robotic side.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we'll get to like really challenging things. Bricklaying was one I saw as well. It doesn't build the rest of the house; it just lays the bricks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a very repetitive motion.
Yeah.
And so I think those will be really popular well before we get to like the one robot that does it
Yeah.
all.
And is that like 5 years for you? 10 years?
I think we're like 2 to 3 years before we have robots like doing stuff for us
Yeah.
reliably, like at the supermarket, at a restaurant, coffee shop, right? We've seen
Yeah.
those in San Francisco, like
Yeah.
the robot coffee baristas. You'll have them at bars, all that kind of stuff. I think we're 15 years away from having we're like 50 years away from everyone having them in their home.
So
But I think in
so fingers
warehouses will come
crossed,
first.
in our lifetime, we could have a robot in our home helping us take care of everything.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I can feel that.
What do
All
you
right.
think? Is that your timeline?
Yeah, I think 2 to 3 years. I think we're going to start seeing a lot. I think concept Apple provisions are going to start coming out in 2 to 3 years. I think 5 to 10 years we start to get probably more mainstream and economical, and then probably 25 years until it's like everywhere.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
yeah. Well, why don't we
Um,
get into our interview with Chris? Dying
yeah,
to know more about Loops and his platform there. So, Chris, welcome to the stage.
welcome.
So here we are with Chris, the founder of Loops. Chris, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Awesome. Can you tell us a little bit more about who you are and your story and how you've come to found Loops?
Sure. Loops is an email sending platform for software companies. We decided that tools like MailChimp, SendGrid, and the combination of other tools that folks were using to build their business was overwhelming, confusing, and outdated. So we decided to rip that back from square one, build it like a project management tool, make it simple, easy to use for a user of any level, but also rich and complex enough to support diverse workflows. So about 2 years ago, we just sold our previous company to Unbounce.
Congrats.
Thank you. We got into Y Combinator. We had a bunch of ideas ranging from climate ideas to privacy to Loops. We ended up
Yeah.
applying with a bunch of those, and then we went with Loops. Day one, we started writing code. 2 weeks later, we had our first bit of revenue, and we've been growing ever since. We've been out of waitlist
Awesome.
for about 6 months now, so about a year and a half to build, and then around 6 months later, here we are.
Wow. So email, like when I think about email, my interaction is just like you said with MailChimp and SendGrid, and it's just a freaking nightmare. Like it just
Especially
feels like,
SendGrid as of late. It's terrible.
yeah, SendGrid is now unusable, basically. But it seems like, like from the outside, knowing nothing about emails,
Yeah.
it seems like these huge companies already have a take on it. So what was like, yeah, let's just go
Yeah,
beat
why
them.
emails?
Like let's go take them down.
Well, big part of it is email is a very, very big space. And the reason for that is it's an established TAM. Every business needs it. So there is a large amount of opportunity there if you could do it well.
Mhm.
The other part of it is I don't think that most folks have the focus and drive that it takes to build a business in this space, listen to users, grow, and compound. I think the value of Loops is going to surface probably in another year or two, which means that we'll have sunk, 3-4 years into a company, and just in the somewhat blind pursuit of a goal that's very intangible for most. And I think that's pretty unusual, especially in the days of AI and being able to generate an app really quickly, get to revenue really quickly, and all that. We've been revenue positive in that we have generated revenue from within the first month, but and growth has been fantastic as well. But it's never been like a quick cash grab. I've described this as like my decade business, and we went into it knowing that. We went into
Yeah.
it knowing that if we failed, the only reason we failed is because we didn't do a good enough job. Not that the idea was terrible, right?
Right.
The market, the TAM is there. If you
It's
build the right
validated.
thing,
Yeah.
it's very much validated. It's heavily validated. We have folks that are buying our software and they've been in the field for 20 years. They've been purchasing email sending tools for 20 years. You should see the checklist that these guys roll up with. So if we couldn't succeed, that it was entirely on us and there's no one to blame. So that's a lot of responsibility, especially in something like Y Combinator, where the goal is to move quickly, to get sky high valuations, to get sky high revenue very quickly right out of the gate. But we kind of told ourselves we were going to put a foot down. We were just going to drive forward and compound and compound and compound and do it for a decade. Here we are.
Yeah, I think lots of companies when they're getting, or lots of founders when they start out, they're thinking, I'm just going to go make a product, and in a year I'm going to be doing $10 million in revenue, and in 5 years I'll be $100 million in revenue, and I'll sell, and I'll never have to work again.
What am I going to do with it? How am I going to spend all this
Yeah,
money
how
on
am I
a
going to spend all
team?
this money?
Let's just hire. We got all this money.
And you're taking a very deliberate approach to being there for a long time. Like, hey, this is going to be a decade. This is going to take forever. Does that feel daunting that you're going to be here for such a long time? This is the commitment, or does this feel like the pressure is off a little bit because you still have another 6 years or 7 years before, the time is up?
It does let me bring a lot of confidence into conversations with larger clients, into conversations with venture capitalists, um, into conversations with prospective clients as well. They get it. They understand that I'm doing this for real. We're doing this for the long run. And we have a very deliberate small team, and we're out shipping some of these much larger companies by
Yeah.
putting our heads down and focusing on that task unilaterally. And it's been successful so far. I think it'll be successful into the future.
What excites you about this space?
Just because of how fractured and broken, and it is. The opportunity is there that if you do manage to nail it, if you land the trick, um, the value is immense, right? So there are, like, I think we have 7, maybe 8 publicly traded competitors. That's 7 or 8 companies that are actively selling against us for the same customers. And they all have enough revenue. They all have enough high enough valuation to be publicly traded.
Yeah.
That's insane. Google doesn't have 7 or 8 publicly traded competitors. I don't even know if they have one. So I think that value to roll that up to beat them all is too exciting. And then there's, of course, thousands of additional startups kind of around this space. There's like some basic design principles that I think, if you think about the problem today and what it means, you can walk it back to those principles and build on them as building blocks. So we know we need a unified design engine across the whole thing. You should be able to craft one message. It should be good for a marketing email, a product email, a transactional email, potentially a text message, an in-app notification. All these things can all be in the same editor. Mm-hmm. Once you start once you start to think about it all in a single editing space, things get a little more exciting, because then you can start having components that are shared across all these different spaces. So say you need to upload a logo, you drop a logo in, and all of a sudden you update a logo for a form, you can ripple that everywhere, and your head of design doesn't have to be chasing down screenshots of emails and notifications across different places to be like, hey, this is the old version, that need the new version. Or you need to update like some footer copyright or some god-awful thing. Like, it just evaporates all those pain points. Excuse me. It evaporates all those pain points once you have modern design thinking, like components, a shared editor space, multiplayer, like all of those things our competitors do not have. And as such, I think that they wouldn't have them either, because they would have to rip out their business or build a new one aside it, which is always painful, difficult, hard to do, and especially so when you're 15 years old as a company.
And dozens of teams across different spaces that are working on, the way they segment their teams is probably making this unification nearly impossible. Like, they just couldn't ever redo this.
It's incredibly difficult. We also have like a really controversial take that maybe plays well into what you folks are interested in, which is that emails don't belong in your code base. We think that's a mistake that many teams end up with, because they think it's easy and this will serve them long term. We want to make it just as easy to build them in loops, but not have to manage them in your code base. If you ever really want to bother like a senior engineer or a head of engineering, ask them to adjust like a table in an HTML email that's buried deep in their code base that they have never seen before. And they have no idea how to change. Or it's installed with some like random JavaScript package that hasn't been updated in who knows how long. So then they need to update the package and maybe break, how purchase receipts are sent to everything. Yeah. So what if you just didn't have to do that? So it's definitely a new way of thinking, in that we're one of the few, if maybe the only company, that doesn't allow emails to be sent from your code base. And it's worked out so far. It's a big thing.
We did this at our agency. We obviously at Bubble, we can't really put our email in the code base. We're not writing the HTML for the email itself. It's really challenging. Like, the email HTML, like, the only way I ever knew how to do this was through some like service HTML email.io or something.
Yeah,
Like you
like a
bought these
generator.
like templates, and if it worked, it worked, and if not, like I had no idea what to do with it. We had to use some APIs.
Yeah, um I was head of strategy at a company called Curiosity, and
That was the streaming platform.
yeah, streaming platform.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not doing so well now. They were doing much better when I was there.
Curiously. No.
Curiously.
Just-
Yeah, publicly traded now. I don't know how much longer. So when we were there, we were sending to we had like a 1 million new users a month joining or something insane like that. I think the volume was even higher.
Wow.
And our workflow for getting an email out was insane. It was using a third-party service to generate an HTML thing that we would cross-test with a different service across a bunch of different platforms to make sure it rendered correctly. Inevitably, it didn't go back and do this over and over and over again. Eventually loading it into another tool that would split it into a bunch of different places. And like it touched like 4 different departments. It touched 3 or 4 different tool sets. And if you wanted to change anything, you restarted the entire process again. That was insane. And we were spending I don't know, we probably put maybe a couple $100,000 a month in MarTech tools, like a minimum. Wow. And it was just the most complex workflow. And things haven't changed. Now, remember, this is like 2016, 2018, so a while ago. But in the space of email, it had been like 25 years of email sending. Software services being available. And that was the current best state of the art. And it's in a lot of ways, it was, prior to Loops, hopefully, our users agree at least, like probably one of the best ways of doing everything if you wanted to manage all your email in one place. So I don't know, that sucked. That kind of like scarred me. And then every time for our last company that we sold to Unbounce, we were using MailChimp. We were paying them like $1,500 a month. And I was like, and we were paying Mandrill, a separate transactional provider, like another couple $100 a month.
Just
it was a hot mess. Yeah.
So when you left Curiosity, did you go, I'm going to solve email one day? Or was this just like on the whiteboard?
No, I was like, I am never going to touch email again. It was the exact opposite. And then everywhere I went, I ended up as head of growth at a company called Biteable. And Biteable was growing really rapidly at the time. They were doing really well. And we had everything set up through Intercom. And we were paying Intercom $10,000 a month.
Wow.
Crazy. And now it's even more expensive. So I imagine what the bill is.
Right. Yeah. Who knows what it is now. But yeah, Intercom famously makes a wonderful product at just like the most cringe-inducing pricing strategy.
Yeah. It's unfortunate because it is a good
you
product,
felt this, but you kept feeling this pain.
So it's too expensive.
Yes, it is a great product, and it is too expensive.
Yeah.
They could have changed. I think their founder came back, which
maybe
is a good sign. Yes. So at Biteable too, we were spending, like I said, $10K a month. We were using Intercom for marketing communications. Intercom built marketing kind of like as an add-on, it felt like at the time, which meant that it never fully kind of fit into our systems. It didn't have unified editing in the background. Like if you uploaded an image, it lived right there and nowhere else, and you couldn't reuse it anywhere. And if you updated it, it didn't matter. And the service, I'm always shocked with customer service companies that have terrible customer service. It's just like, I don't know. You guys should be like opening cafes or something. I don't know what you're doing. But I think that customer service is a really big part of it. I think that's how we've won a lot of deals, especially with some of our larger clients, like Perplexity AI, like just being available to onboard users, to teach them best practices, to like hold their hand through some of this stuff is just so valuable, and it pays dividends for ages. Like we don't do any paid marketing. We just do word of mouth.
Not only, and I remember reading on Twitter about how you had Slack channels to help onboard everyone, right? You were bringing them into the fold in a sense that you could always chat. I can only imagine, not only does that customer have a better experience because they can actually get to some activity that they're like, yeah, this is what I need. But you also get all the feedback of here's what we need to build next, because they're all saying they have these problems. You're getting real feedback and not just watching replays on Sentry or Mixpanel of.
I never watch replays. It's just more cringe-inducing for me than anything else. It's like like if you're like a musician, like watching like a live recording of your set, it's like kind of similar in a lot of ways. But yeah, so we Our thought with customer service, and this is like a wildly controversial take on customer service, is we apply pretty much the same customer service for free users and paid users. And it works really well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you know why? It's because our website says email sending for modern software companies. So if you see that and then you sign up, then hey, you're a modern software company that needs email sending. So I should probably treat you pretty well because you probably want to pay for our service in the future.
Yeah.
So our conversion rate tends to be really good because I think most people, as a free user, they punch something in the live chat and they get like a GPT generated answer, or they get like a list of links to doc questions that are usually not related.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just get a human. So when somebody posts a live chat to us, it pipes right into Slack. We respond right away. Engineers and myself are primarily the only ones that do customer service. If there's like something we can fix in the app, we push the change quickly.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Do you think it's something you can scale with as you get more and more customers and like that?
Absolutely. Yeah. People that disagree aren't good product builders.
It's very matter of fact. Like that's just. I think it's. I think it's true.
What are people? So you have a targeted customer base. You look for email sending for your software company. Okay, so you have like a pretty specific set of needs. If we don't fulfill those needs, then you will reach out to customer service or you'll leave. If we do fulfill those needs, then you won't reach out to customer service unless you want to say a nice thing, which does happen sometimes, and you'll stay. So then if we just continue to fill needs, then we continue to slowly push down the amount of customer service that we get. So we've essentially maintained a similar flow of support messages while we've like 10, 20, 30x the volume coming in, because we build the things that our customers need, and they stop asking about it because it's in the app.
Yeah.
If they still ask about it, it means we didn't do a good job building it, and then we try and change it.
Yeah. No,
what about the feedback that's coming in that maybe isn't in the direction that you want to take your company?
I think if you start with a targeted demographic like we have, then it's usually not as much of an issue as you might think.
Yeah.
We were worried about that initially as well. But we just say in the rare cases, which is usually around cold email sending, we don't allow it on our platform. And when folks inquire about it, we just shut it down. But in most other cases, folks ask for things and they're already on the roadmap.
So we learned a lot about you, Loops, but we didn't hear about your previous company that you sold. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because selling any company is a huge accomplishment. What was the company?
Sure. Yeah, it was called Snazzy AI. It was, if you remember, Copy AI and Jasper. We were in the same first batch of companies that had early access to GPT-3.
Okay.
Cool.
So there was like an initial batch. I cold emailed GDB and got in that way. Yeah.
Fantastic.
I don't know.
Big
recommend on doing that.
Like, how did you know that that GPT-3 was mattered?
Oh, I'd used GPT-2.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
and it was bad. But it was like what if it wasn't bad?
Yeah.
And I didn't know. Like literally, it was like a one-line email. I don't think he was getting a lot of email at the time. In the GPT-2 era.
This is like 2020. This is like
pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID. Yeah. So
I think 2019 is when it was.
Probably still a private company or a public, a nonprofit at the time. It hasn't.
I think their funding structure had changed. They had really strict rules around what you could do. You know, people always mention like, "Hey, like, why didn't you build ChatGPT?" I'm like, because it was literally against the rules. You were not allowed to build a chat interface. That's why. There was a whole list of prohibited copy. You weren't allowed to generate articles.
Interesting.
All kinds of stuff. So we worked with them, and we actually helped develop a lot of the rules that they ended up using, because they kept telling us we couldn't do certain things. So I say it's a collaborative process in that we just kept crossing a line that didn't exist, and they drew it, and they were like, "Don't do that.
Get back over here." Yeah.
Yeah. The cool thing is we ended up being grandfathered in. So every time you crossed a line at OpenAI that wasn't written down, they'd be like, "Okay, you can't do that anymore." You can, because it wasn't in the rules. So we had like a special grandfathered thing on our account.
That's cool.
It actually worked as like a competitive advantage to us because we were allowed to generate
Definitely.
certain types of marketing content that other companies were not allowed to at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we grew incredibly rapidly.
Did you raise funding for it?
We did not. It was entirely bootstrapped, and we sold
Awesome.
in a year
Wow.
to Unbounce.
That's great.
Our growth rate was bananas. I probably should have invested everything in NVIDIA at that time. I'd be retired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we all knew at that time what was happening behind the scenes.
I literally said to my girlfriend, I was like, I think they're peaked. Like, there's no way they can get any bigger than this. Like, AI is fully saturated.
When did you say this?
A couple years ago.
Yeah.
Next time you say something
Is
like
she
that,
still
let
your
me know.
girlfriend?
I'll do the opposite.
Yeah.
The
If you buy
Kramer
Bitcoin
move.
whenever I say not to buy Bitcoin,
Yeah.
you've been doing really well.
Yeah. That's funny. And so, okay, so then you go to Unbounce. You worked there for a little while. Did you have
6
any
months.
handcuffs? 6 months. So just kind of like a transition, and then
I mean, I can't talk too much about the deal itself, but yeah, there was a transitionary period. On the plus side, I was really excited to build in. So like Unbounce, I'm a little bit older maybe, and I say that I'm 35. And
okay, great. So I'm also a little bit older, almost.
Right. Yeah. I'm basically like in my mind, I'm 50. Yeah. Yeah. So at Unbounce, it was cool because they had a plan for integrating our app, and they signed a team of engineers, designers, and they built the entire thing into Unbounce Core, which was really cool. And what that meant was all of a sudden, this company that I had used at like my last 4 companies that I've worked, suddenly made Snazzy, that they renamed to Smart Copy, the centerpiece of their company, which was wild to see because they were doing quite a bit of revenue, and they were the largest landing page building company at the time on the internet. So that things change rapidly, but it was very cool to see that. Kind of felt like a culmination for me.
Yeah, that is really, really awesome. And so then you leave and you go, hey, I'm going to build something else now. What made you think, you weren't in the venture world yet. What made you think, hey, let's go Y Combinator, let's go raise some money?
Yeah, I applied to Y Combinator once, like when I was just starting my startup journey. I would say maybe like 2014 or something. And I applied with Adam, who's my current co-founder, and one other person, and we didn't get in. I don't even remember what we applied with. It was bad the first time. And then we reapplied, I think after the deadline, and we had just a bunch of random ideas, but we just come off selling the company, and I was applying with Adam again. And YC looks favorably on co-founders that are able to stick together for a long period of time.
Yep.
So I think that was a big plus for us. We didn't have any recommendations. We didn't chase any of that stuff. We did our application in like 20 minutes or something. Adam just texted me, and then within the next hour, we were just done. We did the video. We just like told jokes at the end of it. It was not what people recommend for it. I think it was so bad that they maybe had to be like, okay, maybe they're interesting or worth talking to.
Like there's a reason why it's this, and they didn't do differently.
Yeah.
I remember applying to YC. I guess not the last batch, 2 batches ago or something, and we were like, we had already been doing research, and we had a prototype, and we had like notes all over the monitors around us, so that when we had questions, we were like, oh, I know the data, and it's just like right above us, and none of the work, like that prep mattered. Like it was not related at all.
Yeah. We didn't do any of that, which is great.
Yeah.
We did have a bunch of Figma mockups for different things.
Great.
Yeah.
And then so you now go through YC. You in a couple weeks you now have revenue. What was the first revenue? This was like, I know one of their things is just go ask people to pre-buy. Is that?
Yeah, I've had success with that. I hit like 1K MRR like for Snazzy or something, just with like Gumroad links. Yeah, cool. like that was how we started, and then we were at like 10K MRR very shortly after that. But with YC, I think the first 6 people, we got like 6 signups, $99 a month flat rate. We still have a couple users on that actually, and they get unlimited
Nice.
access to everything at any amount of scale. So I'm
Wow.
hoping they cancel at some point. They really should not. Um, yeah. So yeah, like maybe 4 of them were YC companies in our batch, and then
Cool.
the other 2 were random people that I was trying to sell to.
Great.
Well, that was nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
How was the rest of your experience with YC?
Yeah, I highly recommend it. I think it's a no-brainer if you want to build a very big company. If you don't want to build a very big company, you really should probably consider not doing it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of external pressure to follow a certain path once you get on the treadmill. So that was a path that we desired to go in. But I could see if like you're used to bootstrapping and you don't want to be building a company, like a proper company with employees and health insurance and benefits and like raising different rounds of series and sticking to like a 20% month over month growth cycle and doing all of those crazy things. If that's not what you want to do, then it's probably not a good fit. I think there's probably a small percentage of people every batch that realize that.
Yeah, I never had that messaging come across as clearly as that, but I could see that. Personally, like that's not what if I were to go off and do something right now, I wouldn't want to do that kind of company personally. David and I talked about this last time.
Mhm.
I would more like to do like a lifestyle bootstrap kind of thing, just like
Yeah.
not there right now. But David's kind of different. Is like, if I'm going to go, I'm going to swing,
Yeah, it's going to take, I know that any company is going to be 5 to 10 years. And I don't have many 5 to 10 year periods left. Right. And so if I'm going to swing, I should be swinging kind of hard. Right. Like
Right.
not just trying to get to 10K a month and go, yeah, I can live off of this. I should be going for like 10K a day.
There
Right.
you go.
10K a day. It's a good
daily recurring revenue is what I'd like.
Hourly, real-time recurring revenue.
Yeah, with compounding interest, of course.
Right.
I want $1 doubled every day for the next forever.
Sure.
And see how quickly I become a billionaire. It's like not even that long.
I'm not sure there's a proven path to that, but let me know if you find it.
Yeah. If I find it, I'll be
Building
gone. I'll be
probably selling the course.
Yeah, I'll be gone. I'll sell the course on it. And so now let's talk about today, where Loops is today. It's launch week.
Launch week.
It's launch
Yeah.
week. What is going on?
Okay, so I'm watching this show called For All Mankind. It's on
so
Apple
good.
TV. Very
So
good.
good.
Very, very good. I held off for a long time. Now there's 3 seasons, so
Yeah.
I'm glad I held off because it's excellent. But they then launch a bunch of rockets, right? And very high intensity, NASA-like war room setting, and absolutely works for NASA. It doesn't work for us. The way we like to do it is remote async. That's very much in the company lifeblood. I think we do a good job of it. By sheer coincidence, everyone that works at Loops is over the age of 30. I think the benefit of that is we've learned to prioritize a flexible way of working. And what that means is we'll often have 7-day work weeks, but they're not full work weeks. Not every people aren't doing like 9 to 5 or 9 to 7 or 8 to 6 or whatever. People are working when they have good gaps that make sense. So we have one of our best engineers. He seems to work primarily between the hours of like 11 p.m. and like 3 a.m. And my God, I mean, I've known him for a while, but he's just a fantastic engineer and a great designer. He worked at Adobe, Microsoft, and he was the one person I had to steal from my previous company. Because he's so great. And remote async works really well for him, and it works really well for our company. So anyways,
do you think is that a personality trait of yours or the team, or did you have to get used to that? Like, is that what you want? Like, how does that fit?
I really like remote work personally. I find there's a lot of social nonsense that happens in offices. There's a lot of like weird hierarchy situations. There's a lot of like pressure situations. There's a lot of things that aren't building a great product. And, if you strip all of that away, all you have left is just building a great product. And people are honestly, this is like one of the things that I'm most passionate about. It's because I just don't understand anybody who argues against it. If you're not building a hardware product, if you're building a hardware product, you need
Right.
physical parts and you need to be in the same room. Fine. If you're NASA, fine. I get it. There's a rocket on the launch pad. You're watching it like you built the rocket. I get it. I'm totally on board. If you're building a software product, something that can be done with a computer, why wouldn't you hire the best people in the world to do it? If you're able to. So we start there. Okay, so the best people in the world. The best people in the world are not all within San Francisco. Some of the best engineers are actually in Boston. They're in New York and they're in Seattle, where all of these other major tech hubs are. And there's a couple that moved to Portland that we hired during the pandemic. And what we find is that if you want to hire folks just out of college in their very first job and you want to pay them poorly or give them primarily stock options and work them incredibly hard, you should probably build a company in San Francisco and hire those folks because that's where they are. But if you want to hire experienced folks that will crank out products at a very high level, hire folks that have been doing it for 5 or 6 years and find out wherever they are and hire them from there and make it work. So we start there. We start with hiring the best possible people that you can. And you have to be remote, in my mind. So you have to be remote. You take away all the other crap, the office lease, the driving, the commuting, the pollution, the breathing other people's COVID, all of the other things that come with being next to a whole bunch of people. You just remove it. It's just gone. Boom. Okay. So then you have hours extra added to your day. And then how are you measuring the work? Are you in person, like putting like notches and Sharpie on someone's like wrist every time that they like complete a line of code? Like, no, like you don't physically have to be there to like measure the success of a software product. There's lines of code. There's the messages in Slack. All of that stuff already exists on the computer. So why do you have to be there? So if you're measuring
Any
success,
computer,
exactly, any computer. So then if you're measuring the success that way as well, then again, like why not just use the best tool? So what we find is that if you do all of those things, you inevitably end up at a remote async company because people will work whenever they want to work at the times that fit in best with their life. And what that means is you get long, uninterrupted stretches of coding. It means you get a stable product. It means you get a product that people love building, that they've curated and crafted, and they spend all their time thinking about. And they also get to develop really rich lives with their family. They get to support their loved ones. They get to go to places during the day when everyone else is off at their day job. And they get to work at night when their spouse is asleep, when they get their best groove on, because that's what works for them. So I don't think there's a lot of people that can excel at this. You need to find them. And they tend to be a little bit more mature and a little bit later in their careers. Those are the people that we've hired, and it's been successful for us.
Yeah, I think it definitely in the remote work, you need a type of employee that can thrive in there. I remember I had been working from home pre-pandemic, and I remember the transition into remote work was hard, right? Let's just not work in front of the TV. Let's get a desk and set it up and, not just go out for a 2-hour lunch and not just go out for coffee whenever I feel like it, but like the structure of working from home. And then COVID happened and everyone had to learn those same skills. And for some people, it like repelled them. Like they just never worked in their life. And those are probably not the people that work well in a remote async company, right? And that's just kind of part of the hiring process.
I find that soft skills don't translate well.
Okay.
I find if you think your value is checking in on people and building connections in the office, then you will not do well because we measure the results that you're able to do. And you getting lunch with the team isn't a result that I give a shit about.
Yeah, more FaceTime isn't going to help get a promotion because you're in my face.
Yeah, we also lock down meetings and all that stuff as well. We do one all hands once a quarter. I have one weekly sync with my co-founder, one weekly sync with another person, and then everything else is remote and async in Slack, Linear, and Notion.
That forces people to be very good communicators.
It does. It does. And, we talk about that in the hiring process. We'll make it part of the process, but it's entirely merit-based hiring right now. So, you know,
Yeah.
we don't even know really who you are until you pass the coding test, and then we're able to have interviews. And you have to be good with remote and async because we don't plan to change that at any point in the future.
Yeah.
Cool. So I know we're kind of running out of time here.
Oh,
We
sorry, I
talked about
soapboxed a little bit.
No, it's all
oh
good.
yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, we're so I know I spoke with Ryan a little bit on your team about the no code ecosystem, and I know you guys just part of Launch Week launched the official Bubble plugin. Can you tell us a little bit about how you feel about no code, maybe as an industry, and how it fits into your product vision?
Yeah, I think generally it's great. I think no code is something that folks tend to overcomplicate pretty often. And I think it's also a very quick way to get things to market. And I think if
Mhm.
you don't try to make it more than it is, you're going to be in a good place. And if you try to make it everything, then you're going to be in a bad place. Sometimes it's best to write a little bit of code. It's much faster. It can get you over hurdles. And you shouldn't look to a single application to do all of those things. But if you want to get a product to market quickly, if you want to throw up a landing page, if you want to send some emails, absolutely no code is a fantastic way to go. We noticed the Bubble ecosystem was really very poor with email sending providers.
Mhm.
Like
Can
the most pop-
confirm.
yeah, the most popular plugin seems to be SendGrid, but it's not even an official SendGrid one. It's made by a
Yeah.
third party company.
Yeah.
So we noticed somebody in the community had already made a Loops one, had a bunch of installs. So we decided to just work with the Bubble team, make a great one. We're planning to improve it as well. It's going to be official, supported by us. You also get support inside of Slack if you need a hand, or inside of live chat, and it's going to be a great plugin for you to use.
And so what does the plugin do? This is helps people trigger emails, find
Yep, exactly.
contacts.
Sync your contacts in, trigger emails. So say you want to do a wait list, lightning fast, super simple. Just attach the plugin with the form, and you're good to go. All your contacts sync to Loops, and then from there you can trigger an email that goes out in response. You can trigger an automation, an onboarding, um, send campaigns, promotions, all that
And
kind of stuff.
you build all your emails in Loops, in the platform's Loops. And is it like an HTML builder? Is it a drag and drop builder? How do you do it?
Yeah, so it's think Notion plus Figma.
Okay.
Cool.
So you can do complex things that control padding, line height, and things that you would consider design tools. And then it has the same familiarity and a similar interface to Notion.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm going to check it out. It's funny that
Please.
you were saying this. I'm in the middle of building my own SaaS tool, and it's funny because the one of the tickets I have in Linear is audit our emails, and it means, hey, developer, can you trigger one of each email to me so I can review it, and then I
Right.
have to then go give feedback and give it back to him, as opposed to just building it in loops and saying, okay,
Yeah,
great, here's the endpoint and here's the information you feed. I'll take care of the rest, and that
absolutely.
is much better.
Yeah, and you should absolutely do it inside of Loops and review it that way because you won't need a developer for that stuff. Even the
Right.
transactional emails,
Yeah.
it's all handled inside the platform.
Yeah. The invites, the welcomes, you've
All
added
that stuff.
somebody, you've removed someone, some new conversations
We
have been
also have like
added. Whatever.
one-click templates as well. So like
Yeah.
if you need like a welcome email and one-time password email, just click, 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 apply the same style to all of them, send your bubble stuff in, and you're done. Like
Yeah.
you could potentially be done with all of your transactional emails in like 2 minutes or something if you're happy with the template text.
That sounds phenomenal. Sounds great.
Cool.
JJ, anything else before we let Chris go
No,
back to
I
building a
appreciate you
product?
taking the time. It's a fantastic journey. You've been through a lot, all different roles. You had some exits. Now you're in it for the long run with Loops. We've heard great things, word on the street. It's always, we've heard great things about the product. I'm excited to check it out myself. Thanks for taking the time to come on. The no code industry is a really passionate one, but we also have great word of mouth, and hopefully that's advantageous for you and the company. And thanks for building for this ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. Here to help. If you ever need any hands, Chris at loops.so.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Great. Sounds great. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Chris.
See ya.
Huge shout out to Chris for coming on, taking the
Yeah.
time during launch week to come on the podcast, talk about his journey, Loops, why he's building it, what he sees for it. I love the philosophy of just like similar to yours. If I'm going to build it, I'm going to swing for the fences.
Going to be here for a while.
I'm going to be here
Yeah.
for a while kind of thing. And I'm ready for that. It's true. I mean, if you are really building a serious company, it's a 5, 10 year thing, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I do appreciate your viewpoint of like you only have so many of those. So
Yeah.
I totally get that. I totally get that. I just don't think I'm ready for that pressure in my life right now. I mean, there's pressure. I get it. Like I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is where venture helps because you can get some cash in the door.
Yeah.
I think, finding an idea that matters is
Yeah.
great. That
I think
has a real
idea.
exit, real problem. Like you have to do the validation before you jump in. Like you have to know this is a real problem.
Yeah.
Now, it's a 5 to 10 year journey if you think you can make it, if you make it to the end, right?
Right.
So when I'm saying it's a 5 year journey, it says like, you know, I'm going to be building this. I have confidence it's going to grow. To see it to exit, it's going to be 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
If it doesn't grow fast enough, if it dies, whatever, it will be less than that. And I have many more 1 year periods than I do 10 year periods, probably about 10 times as many, I'd say.
Yeah.
um, and so, I think, but the reality is like the get rich quick schemes are unusual, right? He
Yeah.
sold his first company in a year or so. Like, that's not
I
usual.
mean, he struck at the right time, got exclusive access to the right thing. He was a first adopter.
Yeah.
I think it also says a lot about who he is as a person, is being able to find those opportunities and leap on them. And so,
Yeah.
a very smart guy. I think
That was our
also
second YC founder,
the second one.
right?
Yeah.
Because David from Glide also YC.
I feel like we've had more than that too that we might not
Think
have,
so?
but
Not realized.
um, yeah, I think I might change my mind if like I had that idea or like like I just haven't had something like that where I feel like this could be really big yet, and so I haven't had that passion burn inside of me, and plus I just love what I'm doing now, and just so
Yeah.
it's not even kind of there. So otherwise, another great week in no
Another great
code,
week. And I will
and
see you
David,
next week in No Code.
see you next week in no code, guys.